Coming up tonight, we return home. We're on board the Symphony of the Seas, the newest Oasis-class ship, the largest cruise ship in the world. We take a look at another busy Miami port day with a ton of arrivals and departures. And we go back and through time again as we return to Studio B. It's all coming up, so let's set sail. Welcome to the boardwalk on board the Symphony of the Seas. Obviously, it is daylight out, and that is because we are now on the Symphony of the Seas. It is the morning of day 2, and I am filming day 1's episode because something I didn't mention on board the Seaside at all is that their cabins have the little light switch lock that requires a key card to be entered. And unfortunately, theirs locks it down to your actual key card so that you can't just put a business card or any other kind of object in there. And not only does it turn the lights off, but it actually turns all the outlets off in the cabin. So that meant that all sailing, I could only charge at most 1 battery a night when sleeping, and during the day, I'd get a minute here or there of charging, and most of the time, nothing. So by the end of the sailing, with everything going on, all the arrival, departures, getting extra filming around the ship, and of course coming over this Symphony, that meant that every battery I had was depleted by last night, and the only ones that were charged were sitting on the charger at the time getting charged up, so I could not film at night as I normally would. But it is only the morning of day 2, and we are going to cover day 1 on board the Symphony of the Seas for Saturday, December 1st, 2018. So our top story is obviously we left the Seaside yesterday morning to come over to here, so we're going to cover a little bit of that. We had an early morning arrival. We were scheduled, I think, for like 7. We were actually docked by 5:30 in the morning, and after us, both the Norwegian Bliss and the Carnival Horizon came in, sailed past us, turned around, sailed back past again to their spot. We also had the Celebrity Equinox, the final ship, to come in later, sailed past us and dock at her spot, which was a little bit of an odd one because she, of course, left Nassau, Bahamas earlier than us to sail to the same place, but we beat her there by a couple hours. Our original scheduled time to get off the ship was somewhere between like 7 and 8. We got it switched to a 9:55 time slot to give us a little more time to relax in the ship, because obviously we wouldn't be able to get on Symphony at 7 in the morning. And that gave us some time to relax, film more of the ship, and do a little extra research. And one of the things I actually found was the cause of last week's boarding delays. There were drug busts on board the Seaside the past 2 weeks. There was a series of people arrested on the 17th, and then on the 24th there was another drug raid to perhaps arrest people. I'm not sure if anyone was arrested on that one or not, but it certainly was a raid of the ship, and they tore apart a bunch of crew cabins, and that obviously was the delay and why we couldn't get on the ship right away. Of course, when we departed that day, there were delays across the board with everybody's ship leaving. I have no idea if it's related to that or not, but it could be part of the reason everybody was delayed. So our time slot was 9:55. They were actually running ahead of schedule. We were called to get off at 9:45. We held back a little bit to the normal 9:55 that we're scheduled for, and got off the ship. There were no crowds, no lines. It was a smooth, straight off the ship process. Luggage was right there, all organized. It was probably the most organized thing that we saw last week. And once we were off the ship, then we had to get from Terminal F, where the Seaside was, all the way down to Terminal A, where the Symphony was. And to do that, you could potentially walk, but there's a Norwegian Cruise Line terminal being built, so that completely cuts off access without walking in a street. So our only option was a taxi. So we caught a taxi down there, and that was a bit of a mess to try to do. Curbside to curbside, it just seemed like there were issues with the Seaside. When we arrived, the baggage handler tried to threaten us for a tip, and basically claimed that if we didn't give him a ton of money, he was going to potentially lose the bags. And going to leave then, we had to get a taxi, and the taxi driver basically claimed that we were going to cost him his job because he's not allowed to go to the Royal Caribbean terminal because he's paid to be at the MSC one. So that caused a big ordeal. No taxi drivers would take it. The manager of the area had to finally force someone to take it, and obviously the driver was not happy about that and drove like a maniac the whole time. Once we got to the Symphony side though, it was like night and day over at the Royal Caribbean Terminal. Over there, the taxi driver basically would not accept the credit card, didn't want any record of anything, jacked the price up, and over there, instead of trying to extort more money out of us, the baggage handler actually started yelling at the taxi driver and defending us and argued with him and basically got rid of him because he was causing problems. So where the MSC terminal's baggage handlers tried to steal money and threaten you, Royal Caribbean's ones defended you and fought on your behalf. So it was night and day the difference between these two, and it's just crazy how different it is just moving from one cruise line's terminal to another. And I don't know how much that's managed by Port of Miami, but it seems like most of it is related to the cruise lines. A lot seems to fall under because in general, the Terminal A just seems so much more organized. Everybody seemed more friendly and understanding of what they needed to do and getting people to the right place appropriately. So that Terminal A is obviously a brand new terminal built for Royal Caribbean, specifically for the Symphony of the Seas. It opened 3 weeks ago, I believe, so it is very new. It hasn't had too many turnarounds through it. Very few actual sailings have gone through it at this point. But it was the most smooth running terminal I've ever been to. It was the quickest boarding process I've ever seen. It was empty. It is so massive that it was actually empty. And people get on the ship and you don't even really notice it because everybody's just slowly trickling through. There aren't the massive lines and backups and this whole ordeal that you end up seeing when you're boarding in a ship normally. It was just smooth sailing right onto the ship. It was probably only like maybe 5 minutes at most in the terminal. Basically went in, it was an absolutely beautiful terminal inside. They had these really neat escalators with stairs on either side, and on the stairs there are 6 different sections of the stairs. Each one of the sections represents a different class of ships and actually has the name of every ship in that class on it, which is really neat to see and get some pictures of. Then they take and send you through security screening, which was super smooth to get through, very easy. We went after that into a little lounge area where we actually sat down and an agent came over to us with a tablet, checked us all in, got us all set, stamped our boarding passes, and sent us right to the gangway, which was just a few feet away from us, and we got right on the ship. So it was incredibly fast, smooth. We never waited on a line the entire time, and we were there at 11 o'clock. We left the Seaside at 10. We were on board the Symphony by 11, so a total of an hour to get off the ship, get transportation to the other, and get back on. So it was an incredibly quick process over here on the Symphony side of things. So we are now on Symphony of the Seas. Another Oasis class, very similar to the Harmony of the Seas that we did that 13-night transatlantic on 2 years ago, but surprisingly different up on the pool deck. They changed the glass out on the ship. It looks a lot more like the Quantum style glass. I'm kind of surprised Harmony didn't have it since the Quantum predates her, but she now has a very Quantum style glass up on the pool deck. Barriers all over the place to deflect wind. The solarium's completely redone. It really is a very different feeling pool deck up there. The rest of the ship is fairly similar, but it's already a great design to begin with. And there are still a few differences, little shops that move around, some new venues that we'll see throughout the sailing. First, let's take a look at the itinerary. This is a 7-night Caribbean sailing, and it is almost identical to last week. We are starting today in Miami, Florida. Tomorrow is our first day at sea. Then the next day is the second day at sea as we make our way to St. Martin for the next day. We then go to Puerto Rico. We have, I believe, the Symphony's first visit to Puerto Rico on that day. And then we go to Labadee, which I also believe is her first ever visit to Labadee, followed by our third and final sea day as we head back towards Miami to arrive next Saturday. So as I mentioned, today our location is Miami, Florida. There were several ships in port today. There were, I think, the Carnival Glory, Carnival Horizon, Norwegian Bliss, Symphony of the Seas, and the MSC Seaside, all in port today. This evening we had a few sailaways that we got to see before we leave. The first one was the Celebrity Equinox. She had a 3:30 scheduled departure time. She sailed right past and out to sea, and immediately following her was then the Carnival Horizon. And Docked right behind us was the Norwegian Bliss, who then did a nice slide out to the side and sailed right past us to go out. We immediately followed her out. We started moving at about 4:45. We are the very first terminal in the port, which meant that we had the shortest distance out, so we were already out at the sea by 5:10. So it was a very quick departure, only about 25 minutes from terminal to ocean. And along the way, of course, we passed at, I think it's the Northside Park. I was there several years ago. There are some great videos of ships departing that you can check out from that. But now there is the Symphony of the Seas, largest cruise ship in the world, sailing past there, and there were crowds of people along there. Not sure how many were specifically there to see us. See that all the ships were simply at the beach and decided to check out the ships that are leaving, because of course anytime you're near a ship departure, it is an incredible thing to witness. These ships are massive, and the way that they just move through the ocean is incredible when you're watching from the land and just see them sail by at such a close distance. And as for the weather, sure, a lot of those people were at the beach. Maybe it's not Miami Beach weather though, because we had a sunrise at 6:50 a.m. this morning and a beautiful sunset at 5:30 p.m. that you could see right through the boardwalk here, right off of the back of the ship. And we had a high of 77 degrees, so it was a warm day, but it was a very cloudy day. A lot of clouds in the sky, not too much blue skies out there. And that kind of helped make it a little less hot than we've had for most of the last sailing, where it was just those blue skies and that sun beating on you. It was still very warm at 77 degrees, and overall a very comfortable day. There were some winds. We had 12-knot winds yesterday, and the seas were fairly smooth. Not as smooth as we've seen, a little bit of chop in them, but nothing that's moving the ship. I haven't felt the ship move once yet. So onto our compass. The first thing I did when I boarded this ship, right across from the entrance, they had a lounge where you could purchase your WOW bands. They are $4.99 each, and they open your door, let you buy drinks, let you pretty much do anything you do with your card on board the ship. If you're getting on and off, you of course need to have your actual SeaPass card to do that, because that includes the date, the ship name, your name, so that they can validate your identity, where this is just a generic blue watch pretty much. So it knows who you are digitally, but it doesn't in any way reflect who you are on the actual band. And I did not bring any of my old WOW bands. Last time on the Anthem I mentioned they weren't doing the exchange. This time it sounds like they might have been doing the exchange again. So if you are going on a cruise, do take your WOW band. It's hit or miss. Maybe a ship will accept it, others may not. This one I have heard some people mention that they were switching them out, so it might be working again that way. I also straightened out some of our booking reservations. I did all of that in advance through the Royal Caribbean Pre-Cruise Planner. All those things showed up ahead of time, and we were able to book every single show. Now that we could see the full compass, I was able to go through and adjust some of them that conflicted with some parties or special events and get everything squared away so that I don't have to miss anything I don't want to on this sailing. They also, of course, have the Royal app. It is a brand new app that is different than the Royal IQ app. It is much more modern, much cleaner looking, a lot more visual than the old app was, and it works pretty smooth. Royal Caribbean's IT is still not their strongest point. The one thing I liked about it was that there was zero setup for this thing. At home, I entered our reservation and my last name, and I was able to log into the app at home, see all the entertainment, the compass, the menus, everything that was available. Some days of the compass were incorrect, some of the menus were not there. Now that we're on board, all of that detail is there. When we were on the Seaside, I was actually already looking at it a little bit, so I'm not sure exactly how far in advance it was kind of finalized, but it is certainly accurate now. And there was zero setup. Because I was set up at home when I got on board, it just worked, compared to the MSC one where I set it up at home and then had to redo it all here. It was the single seamless experience the whole way through. Now, the one annoyance I found with it is they do have the daily planner that lists all the different events, and you have a personal calendar. But the only way things are on the calendar is if it is a show reservation, a dinner reservation. Once again, your standard dining is not listed there. But they also are not listing the port of call, arrival, and departures. And you can view the whole compass, find the events you want, but I cannot find any way to actually add them to your calendar. So you can look at it, but you have to keep re-looking through it to find what you want. You can't just glance at your calendar and have everything you want, which is certainly a very big pro to the MSC app, which did have that functionality, and I used it almost entirely to figure out what I wanted to do. I just load everything in there and I keep glancing at that and ignore the clutter of the full list. So hopefully they'll add that at some point. The other thing, they've always had a loophole that allowed messaging through their firewalls, allowed you to actually use the Apple iMessages to communicate to people with other iPhones, not only on board the ship, but at home on land. And they appear to have finally closed that loophole. It is not working. We're not able to send messages to anybody this time. We could on Anthem just in May. Last week, the Seaside had that same hole. But it appears that possibly with this new Royal app, they've changed it in a way that they no longer need to have that loophole in there. And unfortunately now that communication channel is often, that's a real shame because it's a great way to coordinate with everybody on the ship. The Royal IQ app did have text messaging ability in it. That was a very high fee to purchase it for every device. But the Royal app doesn't even have it as an option. There is no way to communicate. Your only option is to actually buy a data plan and use that so that you can communicate. So that is a very high price tag in order to just communicate and help coordinate with other members of your family or cabin on board the ship. And with a ship this big, it is not the easiest thing to coordinate, to figure out where people are, because even if you just head to the pool deck, there are 5 of those. You may go to one, find it's a bit too crowded, go to another, and it can take a bit to try and find where people are and coordinate things. So the messaging was always a great benefit to have, and it's a shame that they closed that loophole. Hopefully they'll consider opening it, or even if they don't want you communicating at home without paying, put the messaging feature into the Royal app. I've heard some rumors that they were working on it and will have it potentially on one ship as a trial. It may even be there already. But hopefully that is a free feature, because the Royal IQ app one was way overpriced, and it's such a basic functionality that adds so much value to people's crews and allows them to better coordinate and just do more on the ship, that it's something that really should be included for everybody. So at 1 o'clock our cabins were available. This sailing I have a boardwalk view cabin, the first ever boardwalk one I've had. I've had ocean view windows, I've had balconies on the ocean side, I've had ocean views that face forward over the bow. I have one of those on the Ovation of the Seas in May of next year. But I've never had an interior cabin or an interior balcony window of any kind. So this is a first for us, and it is an incredible view out here. You can see right out to the ocean behind. It is obstructed by the slide, which I figured it really is a shame, because the Oasis and Allure always had an incredible view out. The slide really does take advantage of that space to add another feature, but it also takes away from the view everybody in here has. But you do get a decent view of the Aqua Theater, and the nicer thing is from our cabin we have a great view of those video screens down there, so when they're showing movies we can sit up here on the balcony and watch those movies, and it is completely unobstructed view of those screens. So that is a great little benefit here. And with this boardwalk balcony, of course, you can hear there's a lot of noise out here. You have to worry about that a little bit, but for the most part, it is pretty quiet inside. You just have to make sure you have the handle pointed down. When the handle to the balcony is pointed up, it releases that seal, and you can pretty well hear it. Not a whole lot of difference between open and having the handle up. But as soon as you put the handle down, it really seals most of that sound out. You can still hear some. So if you are a very light sleeper and an early sleeper, you may have some issues. But for the most part, everything kind of goes quiet in here by midnight, and they really don't start doing anything until like 10 a.m. So you should be good to sleep as long as you don't turn in early or are very light, and that little bit of noise that gets through could bother you. So then at 4:30 we did have our muster drill. Ours this time is located down in the main dining room on deck number 5. This is our first muster drill in the dining room. And similar to Anthem, they had a live demonstration, they explained everything, and then they played a video, that mystery video that we saw, the spy video from Anthem. And in the dining room, they actually had screens, TV screens all over the dining room. On the Quantum, we saw those video screens being used for art in Silk, and on Harmony, I think there were a few. On Symphony, they are all over the dining room, and not sure how much they were meant for the art versus how much they were installed purely for this drill, but they were used for the drill. It was displayed on every one of the screens, just like they did in the 270 with the robo screens to show it, or in the Royal Theater on the projection screen. They used those screens to display everything so that you could see the full video, and no matter where you were in the dining room, there was a screen somewhere that you could look at to see that. So that was 4:30. 5 o'clock was our sail away. As I mentioned, we got going a little bit earlier. 4:45 we started moving, and by 5:10 we were already at sea, which was nice because 5:30 was our dinner. Changed slightly. 6 o'clock was what the actual confirmation said. It's what the document said. Everything has said 6 o'clock up to this point, but when we got on board, our key and the compass all say 5:30, so they did adjust that time a little bit to an earlier time. Works out nicely because that is the time we had last week, so pretty much seamless dinner time across there. So today was the day one menu. We were on deck number 3. This time we're a little bit towards the center. We had a private table still though, and the way that they have barriers, that different objects, different instructions throughout the dining room. Even though it is a massive large dining room, it still has a lot of little corners and secluded areas, a lot of dividers to help make it feel a little bit less like a gigantic room that you're eating in the middle of. So it really did not feel like we're in the middle of a huge room, even though we were this time. And of course, dinner service. Royal Caribbean is always excellent. Pulling chairs out, napkins on the lap, all the things that you expect. Filling drinks right away. As soon as they get a little bit low, they're topping them off. All the normal things that you typically see on a cruise. But for me, with the menu today, for my starter, I went with the French onion soup, one of the classic items. And this one was, as it was on Anthem, a great dish with that piece of bread in it and then tons and tons of cheese over the top. It's just covered with cheese and tasted delicious. For my entree, I went with the baked polenta and feta cheese. This is another dish that I've had before. This is pretty much, I think, the exact same menu as the Anthem of the Seas, so likely the same items I got there. And this one was very similar to what I had before. It had a little more of a marinara sauce in the bottom than I think other dishes had like this, but it was still very good. And for dessert, I got the Pear blueberry cobbler, and this is probably the most inconsistent dessert I've seen on Anthem. It was almost like a jello to it. This one, there was no jello to it. It was very much a bowl of blueberry fruit in there with some crumble top on it. It was good. It was definitely different than what we've seen the last few times, so I'm not sure why that dish seems to not have a standard format, because it is slightly different every time I've gotten it so far, but it was once again a decent dessert. Following dinner then, time for the great Symphony of the Seas entertainment. 8:45, I went to the first showing of 1977 of the sailing. 1977, of course, is the ice show. It is the sequel to 1887 on board the Harmony of the Seas. Of course, in 1887 on the Harmony of the Seas, you've got some time travelers going through space and time to try and find love, and in this one, they're once again going through space and time, but this time it's related to a jewel thief they're trying to capture. It was an incredible show. From beginning, it starts out with the drones. Everybody pretty much knows about the drones, I think, at this point, because it is such a huge moment and a huge thing on board this ship. The drones just come out and you're sitting there and the room goes pitch black and you just start to hear this humming sound, and then all of a sudden the lights kick in and there are all these drones just filling the room. It is an absolutely incredible moment to witness, and one of those things you really don't see on any other ship except this one in Studio B, and they're going to have more. They're going to have more on other ships. It sounds like Spectrum may have it in 270 or somewhere else, but on here they do have it, and it is probably the biggest moment of the entire show, right at the beginning, so do not be late for that one. They then had a variety of different songs and themes. Compared to the last one, which went into different genres, different tones of music, this one was very much around different ethnicities of music, different themes and styles in that form. And towards the end, then, they go back towards the winter, and they actually make it snow. So not only do they have drones in this show, but they make it snow, and it is an incredibly well done snow. I'm not sure what they're using for that snow. We'll hopefully find out a little bit later. But when the snow was falling, there was a little bit of a smell in the room of something, so I don't quite know what they're using. It doesn't seem like it's just standard bubbles or something slightly different about it. but it was a pure blizzard out there, and it looks absolutely incredible. It is the coolest scene. It may even be cooler than those drones, but those drones are just very neat technology you don't see anywhere else, so they probably get that little bit of a lead. So overall, that show just has so much neat, innovative stuff that you don't see on any of the other shows on board this ship or other ships. Overall, I kind of think that 1887 gets the win though. There's something about that one that I still think just edges it out a little bit. The way that the different genres of music were there, I think, gave a little more variety to the show. This one had a lot of energy, a lot going on to it, and it was a consistent level of energy, where I think that up and down peaks and valleys of the show on Harmony helped it a little bit more, and I would have liked to see a little more of that, but it was still an incredible show. A lot of really incredible talent, as there always is in these ice shows. And that is why I went to that 8:45, and of course I returned for the 10:45 show later that night to see it one more time to get a different view. The first show, I had that front row center end of the ice view, which is the best view you can get in that theater. It is incredible. For the second show, I stayed on the end in the center, but I went to the top so I could get that broader view looking down on the ice and really see everything, make sure you don't miss anything. It's a very different view. They are both great views, but you definitely forget the rest of the crowd exists when you're in the front, which adds a whole nother element to any show that you go to see. So that was 8:45 and then 10:45. And at 10:45 in the Royal Promenade, they also had a big welcome back party going on. They had a live band up there performing, and they were an incredible band. It's a lot of Royal Caribbean bands we've seen, but this one seemed very off the cuff, a lot of live interaction with the audience, which you usually don't see from these bands. They're often up there just performing. This one was very much interactive, and that's really neat to see, and it really added a whole nother level to that party. It made it a much more exciting and energetic party than a lot of the other Royal Caribbean parties typically are. But it came to a peak at midnight when they had the massive big welcome back balloon drop that took over the center part of the Royal Promenade. And that part was a short 5-minute period hosted by Abe Hughes, who we saw in the Harmony of the Seas. And he counted down and dropped all those balloons, and just like we saw in the Harmony, they fall, people play for a moment, and then all the popping starts, and it goes on for a couple minutes. Compared to Harmony, I think this was significantly fewer balloons. At the end, there was, of course, all that trash on the floor, but nowhere near we saw in the Harmony. There was a smaller crowd than the Halloween party, so the balloons were probably about comparable amount for the crowd size. But unlike Harmony's, where it was Halloween, it was a big party event. They've been doing this every single week on the Symphony of the Seas. Since she set sail, every single week they've started the cruise with a balloon drop, or they've had one at the end to celebrate the end and send people off. But either way, every sailing has featured a balloon drop. So this is something that's now a standard feature of the Symphony of the Seas, and one that everybody always enjoys. When you have a massive balloon drop, it's not something you get to experience every other day. And it is certainly something special on board the Symphony of the Seas, and one that is always popular with the guests and really creates a cool moment. So that pretty much ended the night. Then that was a 12 o'clock balloon drop. The band continued playing probably until like 12:30, and then everything kind of emptied out and they started their big cleanup process. So the Symphony of the Seas, as I mentioned, is very similar to Harmony. It is a Royal Caribbean ship, which means a lot of the same venues. So there are a few new ones. We will take a look at them, but for today at least we have no venue tour, no dining tour, but we do have an interview. Today saw the ice show, and to go along with that, I got to sit down with a Studio B theater manager to learn about how that theater operates and how all that stuff is pulled off. Today I am joined by Ramon, who is the stage manager in Studio B. Thanks for joining me.
Nice meeting you.
Could you provide a little bit of background on yourself?
On myself, I started in year 2002 here. on a lower position as a room service attendant, and then I have a passion on entertainment industry. So while I'm delivering the order and passing through the theater, I said I want to be part of this team. So joining on 2002, and then when I come back in 2004, I asked the production manager if I can do some training as a stage staff. She allowed me to do some training. So I do training in less than a month. She hired me, and then we do some paperwork, and I got the position as a stage staff. So after doing a stage staff for how many years, I become a head stage staff. After stage staff, I become a production manager 2012 until now. So all in all, this is my more than 16 years with the company as an employee of Royal Caribbean.
So what first led you to join Royal Caribbean?
I love to travel because I work in the Philippines. I travel a lot in the Philippines as one of the assistant of the truck delivery. I said, "Oh, I've been in the Philippines all over the world, all over the place. I want to travel, but how? How could I travel? My dream before is just to go to one place to work there as a worker, as an overseas Filipino worker." And suddenly I found myself here working in the cruise ship and being around the world.
So Studio B is a production theater. It's a large venue with a lot of functionalities. Could you give a little overview of some of the key areas of it?
In Studio B, first I have 3 stage staff. 3 stage staff, their function to me is I'm helping them as well, like pre-setting for the show, running the show. They are my eye on the stage. They are the one who's giving me to say go if I need to go for the scenery to move, but always there's a time code. Time code is synchronized with the sound and the light, so we have to move on the same time. There are certain times that I need to move some scenery and some other props for the show. So there are stage up are my eye on stage. So they are a big help for me to do the show. Not only doing the show, of course, taking care of the venue. We have a lot of things to do here. Not only the show, like we have master inspection. They have to clean up the area. They have to taking care of the ice. They are the one who's scraping the ice. If not, I'm not around. And they are the one who's taking care of all the equipment and scenery with the help of my rigger. I have rigger as well. Aside from that, I have sound technician. And then I have lighting technician. Not only for the show, they are also responsible for the other events like laser tag, quests, red party, whatever activities we need to held here in Studio B. And then for the production cast, I have 12 skaters plus 2 ice act. My skater and my ice act came from different countries. We are like multinational crew member, as well as my stage staff, technician, and me. So overall, we are one team. We are black shirt team in Studio B, but in overall, we have a big black shirt team in the entertainment industry.
So what are the different areas of the venue that you operate out of to pull these shows off?
I have the lighting booth. Lighting booth is on port side of the ship. He is the one controlling all the light during the show and other event. And then I have also some technician. He is the one who's controlling for the audio for all shows and event on here. And then not only doing their part as a sound technician and lighting technician, they also help us preparing for the show, for the setup, for striking everything, because show is a huge setup and striking. And then if we have like back to back after the show, we have another event, everybody one team full force to do the striking and the setting up.
So the main show that takes place in here is 1977. Could you give a little overview of the concept?
Okay. 1977. I have two different ice show here. The first is 1977. 1977. It's like an era during 1977 that we bring back in today's era. So all the music happened in London. The big setup for this is the drone and calibration of the drone. So my sound technician are the one who responsible to aim this, to make it happen. But before we doing that, 1 hour before, we have to calibrate it, put it on the ice and aim it if it is flying or not. If not, we have to test it again. So if nothing happened, so I have to report it way back to whoever supplier we had for the drone, that this drone is not functioning, can you do something, or what we need to do. This is really a constant communication between the supplier and us as the user of the drone. And this show is really nice show. Every time that we offer this show, it's a full blast, full house. The other show is the Ice Skate 2.0. This is like new era, more on dancing, more interactive with the guests, like a disco show that everybody can enjoy as well.
Okay. So with all these shows, with Harmony of the Seas, one of the things that was introduced was projection mapping to the ice. That is on board here as well. Could you go over that a little bit?
Oh, this is the first time I saw this as well. This is so really nice and amazing. When you see the ice, you can see the projection of like scenery there, whatever. You can see a whale. You can see a different scenery on the ice due to the help of mesh. A mesh is like a cloth. So how to put that mesh? We need to melt totally the ice, totally full ice melt, and then after full ice melt, we need to lay a thin ice, and then after laying the thin ice, we need to put the cloth, the mesh cloth. We call it mesh cloth. And then as soon as we plait all the mesh cloth from upstage to downstage, we start laying again water for the ice. So the mesh will stay under the ice, and this mesh will give you a projection for some scenery like the whale or whatever, or like the flower that you can see during the 1977 show.
Yeah. And then Harmony was the big introducer of projections, but Symphony has now brought us drones. How are those working?
This is really a good combination from Kulaks, Kulaks of the light projection, and the drone. All in all, we have 60 drone here, but we usually use only 48. We have spare just in case the other drone didn't work for the first show, so we have backup. So for the show, we have, as I've told you, before the show start, we have our preset. Before the show, we have to do the preset and calibration of the drone. After calibration of the drone, everybody's working. We need to put back on the rack, and before the show start, we have to preset all the drone on the stage. And then this drone is 48 drone. So when we do preset, we need to set it properly. On that drone, there's a numbering. That numbering facing to the eyes, to the audience. If someone put it in the wrong way, it's not nice. So I have to check. I am the one who left on stage because we are 6 staff to place those tray with 8 drone each. So when we place it, I'm ensuring that it placed properly and securely, and then as soon as everything is okay, I will give a go. The show start, couple of seconds, drone will fly and goes to the ice. And then the light is synchronized. They go different light together, and they will form together. like a bird, like a group of birds that forming, you know, on the sky that you see. It's the same.
Now, a lot of people talk about those drones and projections, but one of the neatest scenes that nobody really talks about is the blizzard scene. Could you explain that a little?
The snow. We have snow machine. During the show, during the number of Antarctica, there's snow coming, and this snow is water-based snow. So it doesn't affect on my eyes, and this snow, it takes like 90 seconds aiming the snow on the ice, and it will not affect on the ice anymore.
So with the ice, obviously it's a little bit different than a normal stage. You've got to take care of it. What kind of care and maintenance is involved?
This is 100% that you have to taking care of it, focused. I'm doing this as a Studio B production manager for how many years, and I know how to taking care of the ice. Taking care of the ice, of course, we have the Symphony. The Symphony are the one who's using to cut the ice and laying water, and then we have like edger. Edger is the one that a machine that we're using, cutting the ice on the edge, especially that one. It's not even, right, because of the layout of the ice rink. So Symphony cannot go there the end, because you will cut, of course, the end of the glides. So every year we need to do a full ice melt every 6 months, twice a year, of course. And then taking melting ice is just what I'm doing every on the last day of the cruise. I spoke a day before. I spoke the chief rep. I sent an email that we need to do a full ice melt. This is a big project, so no show on here, no activities in 72 hours, at least 72 hours. So I sent an email that we have to change the plan for the next cruise because we need to do this maintenance. So melting the ice after the show or any other event here, like all skate, an hour before or 30 minutes before the all skate done or show done, I call the chief rep that we are about to shut off the compressor. So before the show over I call the chief rep, please shut off the compressor so the compressor is at 0 degrees. So the ice will get melted. But prior to that, I have to bring down the Symphony on the ice. On the Symphony, on the water tank is hot water, so I need to make a hole on the ice, serve as a drain for the melted ice. Put a lot of hole on the ice rink, and then after 3 to 4 hours, I don't have the ice anymore. And then rebuilding the ice, it takes time as well. So after melting the ice, you have to clean, vacuum wash everything, take out the dust and dirt, vacuum, and then dry it. And then if you need to put sealant on the corner, you have to do it, and then dry it again. So by the following day, embarkation day, we start cleaning everything, and then as soon as the ship sailing, we start melting we start laying water. Before I laying water, I have to call chief rep, can you please bring back the temperature gradually? So as soon as we spray water on the floor of the ice, the water hold by itself. So and then so on and so forth until we build the ice. It's like 72 hours continuous. So it's a rotation between the technician and the skater as well. So everybody involved on this procedure. And as soon as we build ice, so we have a nice ice. Every 2 weeks, if I have nice ice now, if I want to maintain the quality and the height of the ice, every 2 weeks I did a mini melt, like what I'm doing right now. Mini melt every 2 weeks, just to maintain the level of the ice, not high on the glides, because I need to put the floor on, so the floor will not get damaged through the height of the ice.
So Studio B is primarily an ice rink, but it is also a very transformative environment, being used for things like the Quest as well as laser tag. What's involved in making it capable of extra events like that?
This is what, of course, this is a millennium year now. We have a lot of activities, not only from 1 year old or from newborn baby to the oldest people, or like 99-year-old people. We have to give like laser tag. This is a new one. We have Red Party here. We have Quest. We have Battle of the Sexes. Let's talk about Battle of the Sexes. Is just easy. We have to put the floor on and put some steps so the people can go on the floor, because they play around on the top of the floor. So no ice, covered with the floor. Same as like in the Quest, it's a scavenger hunt. It's crazy game. It's really nice. And there's another one, laser tag. Laser tag is a big setup. It's 5 huge inflatable that we need at least 10 to 12 staff to set up and to strike. So there's a dome area that the command center of the laser tag. We have to set up the monitor, speaker, the TV, the microphone, and ensuring all the best, all the gun best is ready. My primary function of this, ensuring the safety of the guests, that all the inflatable is attached together. There is no wet part of the floor, and we give on the command center, we give the instruction: no running, just walk and just play naturally, no like horseback riding or whatever, because this is for their safety, and then ensuring it will run nicely from the sound and from the light booth. And then there's another one, Red Party. Red Party is, of course, everybody loves party. This is a big setup as well. An hour to set up and an hour to strike. And I need huge amount of time and stuff to do this event.
All right, so you've just started on the Symphony of the Seas, but what is next for you? What is your future plan? This, as I've told you, this is my 16 years turning to 17 years. I don't know when I'm gonna stop, as long as enjoy, as long as enjoy the ship, and as long as my medical, because we as a Filipino, we need to go medical before we go on board, and our medical is expired for 2 years. As long my medical allowed me to get on board, yes. And until now, my next ship I didn't know yet, because we go different ship. You have to go here, you have to go there. I don't know yet, but as I've told you, I'm enjoying what I'm doing as a production manager, and I love the entertainment industry. So is there anything else that you'd like to tell the viewers?
Oh, for you out there, please see us around here. Come, book a cruise in any ship of the Royal Caribbean, but first come here in Symphony, the biggest ship in the world, the most innovative technology, not only the entertainment, all over the ship, the boardwalk, the spa, the kids zone, sport, promenade. And there's another one that I am doing here, is the parade in the promenade. Don't miss that parade. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So I want to thank him for taking the time to sit down with me. That is such a unique venue that only Royal Caribbean offers. Nobody else at sea has an ice rink. Even we're 20 years almost. Next year will be 20 years of ice rinks at sea since the Voyager of the Seas launched in 1999. You got 5 of them in the Voyager class, 3 of them in the Freedom class. You've now got 4 in the Oasis class. That is 12 ships with ice rinks. That is a lot of ice at sea, and nobody else has even attempted an ice rink at sea. Nobody else is trying to do shows on ice. It is something unique to Royal, and with the projections, that snow, the drones now, I mean, there's so much to these ice shows that were already incredible just with the talent alone. They are some of the most impressive things you can see at sea, so always make sure you get out to Studio B for those ice shows. Do not miss them. And as you heard, there is Ice Skate 2.0 as well, so be sure to come out to both of them. And that about does it for today's episode. It is now day 2. I know a little bit about what happened today, but you don't, so be sure to tune in again tomorrow and check out what's going on. Of course, I'm Picone. As always, stay tuned for the links.